So anybody who's worked with Arduinos before knows that sometimes things can get a little bit messy and disorganized, and the messier things are, the more disorganized things are, the more difficult your project becomes. So in this video I'm going to show you how I went from this sort of mess to pure organized bliss, making my projects a little bit easier. Let's get to it. For this project we're going to be using Fusion 360. The first step was getting the outline right for the Arduino Uno. To do that I found a schematic drawing online which had all the measurements that I needed, which I then used to calibrate the canvas so that I know the size is right, and then I used that template for the overall shape on the Arduino portion of the stand. This part was really important because not only did it help me get my sizings right, but as you see later on it helped me get the right positioning for the heated inserts. So that was the first step. Once I was happy with the overall outline I had drawn for the microcontroller, the next step was to make a rectangle to go around it, and that would be the overall size for the part where the Arduino was going to eventually be housed. I then used that rectangle with the extrude function to make a little base plate for the Arduino Uno, and gave it a nice little embossed outline just to give it a bit more of an aesthetic look. The next step then was to make the risers that the Uno will rest on and that the heat set inserts will go into. So once the Arduino part was done, the next step was to make the part of the model where the breadboard would be housed. So I took some measurements of my breadboard that I'd be using and made a rough model on Fusion 360. I used a new sketch with an offset to make it slightly larger than the overall size of the breadboard, with the extrude function to make a housing, and then we used the combine and cut feature to make space for the breadboard. So once I had both individual parts of the model ready, I then used a join feature as separate components to bring them together and create a 45-degree angle, which I thought was ideal for what we were going for here. The next step then was to try and create a way to prevent the model from tilting over. As you can see, if the Arduino is just on a thin platform, any sort of pressure will cause it to fall over backwards. So then the next step was to try and create some sort of footing or just extra mass to keep it standing. And then finally I created a hexagon pattern on the sides of the model and then extruded those across to cut through. This had a couple of features. One, I quite like hexagons, I think they look quite nice on 3D prints. But secondly, it's a way of maintaining some rigidity in the model but also saving on filament. Otherwise if you try and print it as a solid model, you're committing a lot of filament there, so the hexagons are a good workaround. So once I got to this part I thought I might have been done with the model, but I had a good look at it and there were a couple of things I wasn't too happy with. Firstly, I think there was still too much material being used. I think once I get to this part of the model I always like to step back and think, where can I cut back on material without compromising on any sort of aesthetics or function. So that was the first thing. I thought we could save material somewhere. And then the second thing is I just didn't really like the look of it. It looked a bit too blocky and whatnot, so I decided to go back in again and try and make it a little bit nicer and save on some material. So at this point I was quite happy with the model. I saved a little bit of filament, not as much as I think I could have looking back now, but it looks a little bit better, especially that chamfer around the back. It gives it something a bit different, and I managed to save some material. So once I was done with the Arduino and the breadboard mount, the next step then was to try and create some sort of storage or something to go around it so that I can store other components while I'm working. And this was the final model. All in all, pretty happy with the way it turned out. I think it serves all purposes and it actually looks quite decent. So here are the printed parts, fresh off the build plates, and they've both come out really nice. So this is the main part of the build. This is where the Arduino is going to go. This is where the breadboard will go. And to be honest, I really love this hexagon design. Not only has it saved a fair bit of filament, but it gives it a really nice aesthetic. I'm really happy with that. That was a good shout. I think it was also good chamfering this edge off, because again, you want to be as economic with filament as possible without compromising function. That's usually the two challenges I set myself when designing. How can I save as much filament as possible without compromising on looks and also function? And even with this now, with the chamfer though, when I seat it down, it holds its own. So that's really nice. I'm happy with that. This is the little tray that I designed after, so that's going to slot over there. And we're going to use just a little bit of adhesive just to help it stay put there. So that's everything ready there. Here's obviously the Arduino Uno. Now, these are the heat inserts I'm going to be using. So they're compatible with the M2 bolts. So we're going to be using obviously 4 of them, and they're going to go into the back Arduino part like so. Try and get some zoom there, there we go. So it's going to be going in like that. So we've got one there, there, and there, and then eventually once that's done we'll be able to screw the Arduino into this back plate, and that will be then a semi-permanent way. In the future, if I ever need this board, I can take it off and use it elsewhere, but it'll be good to have it there almost indefinitely. That's how the Arduino is going to go on. The breadboard fits really nicely already. It's pretty good friction fit, so I was fully intending to use the adhesive strip at the back of the board here, but to be honest, it may not actually come to that. Even with a little bit of gentle pressure, that stays pretty well put. So all in all, making good progress so far. The next step then is to get the heat press inserts into the back bit there. So let's go ahead and get on with that. Right guys, so that is the Arduino mounted onto the model, and it looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, when it's resting down like that, it looks very sort of retro techy, which is a vibe that I really enjoy making. So it looks pretty good. I'm quite happy with it so far. So the next step is to mount the breadboard over here. For that, we're going to just be using the adhesive tape at the back of the breadboard. Again, we're going for semi-permanent here, so I think that will do the trick. And then we're going to go ahead and glue it on the little component tray, and then that will be us all done. So we're nearly there now. Good progress so far. Right guys, and here is the finished product. So it's looking pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I'm quite happy with the way this has turned out. So it's very functional. As you can see, I've just put a few dummy components on there just to get an idea of how it's all gonna work, and it just makes everything a lot easier. Before, when I was making projects with breadboards and Arduinos, everything was just all over the place. It probably still will be to some degree, but this has really helped reduce the mess there. These little trays on the side, I'm looking forward to using those as well. You know how it is when you're knee deep in a project, everything just gets all over the place. So yeah, all in all, I'm really happy. Again, the hexagon designs come out really nice there, and yeah, it's a pretty sturdy looking thing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking, subscribing and leaving some comments just to help support the channel. And if there are any other projects you'd like me to have a go at in the future, please let me know. I've also left a couple of links to some other projects that I made if this is your sort of thing, so you can go check those out. But until then, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.